You got this and you got that, and you gonna murder this one and murder that one. Talking all that bullshit. I'ma put it to you like this, yo.
This is for the nerds, this is for the brainiacs, this what we deserve. Go ahead and play it back, you ain't gonna touch me, you not gonna do nothing, you are not above me. I bet you wish you was me, I know it, I know.
What is poppin', everybody? And welcome back to another special episode of the Only Friends podcast. Well, you know, it's me and my only friends, which includes, but is not limited to, my boy Hunt. What's poppin', Hunt?
Hey, Conrad. I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm chilling, baby. Just chilling.
Good, good.
You know, it's
Rocking the pigtails today. I like it.
another day in the life. I had to get this hat on, and it was really weird with all my hair. So I was like, all right, you know what? I'm just gonna braid it.
Yeah.
And bing bang.
It could be a wig under there. We don't know. With the hat, like we don't know it's actually your hair.
I always think of like, is it the Hasidic Jews that have the long?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. That's the look. That's the look Conrad's
Rabbi
going for.
Conrad.
Yeah, Rabbi Connie.
You know, I'm
Out
just trying
here
Rabbi Connie.
talking about the gospel.
Yeah, when you look at Conrad, you really do. You think rabbi. You know, it's the first thing you think about.
It's
Yeah.
just a group of two, me and Darren.
Yeah.
Let's pop in, sidekick.
Come on, man. I'm over here doing a little
work.
little pre-show maintenance.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I thought you guys were gonna have a little catch up here.
Nah.
Maybe talk about Hunt starting off 1-2 in the old
Weekend Warrior.
Weekend Warrior picks. And
Oh yeah, we
not
lost.
looking
we
good,
lost.
cuz.
I knew it was a dumb idea to bet on a Man United player. Just a fucking terrible idea. Just go Haaland every week. I should just go
Yes.
Erling Haaland every single week. I don't know why I didn't. He scored twice again this week.
You have the same strategy as Conrad's Najee lower.
Yeah. If
Haaland higher, Najee lower.
if I went Haaland higher every single week, I'd probably do pretty well.
I have a question. So the Premier League just started, right?
No, they started in August. They've been going for a while.
Okay. So
For you, it just started, yes.
how many games left? Let's say.
They're like 11 games into a 38 game season.
Okay. How many goals do you think Haaland's going to get this year?
I
How many does he have now?
don't know how many he has.
I'm finding out right now.
I think he has. I want to say he has 9 or 10 already. I think he'll probably end with 35 or so.
But he gets
goal a
just shy
game
of
is-
one per game.
Something like that. Yeah, I mean, in his first season, he got about a goal a game. And that's just an insane record.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
So
How he scores so much?
he has 13.
Oh, he has 13 already? Okay, he might hit 40 then. He legitimately might hit 40.
And he has 3 assists.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it helps that he plays in one of the best teams of all time. But, yeah, he's pretty insane. And he's
Matt,
like
have you been
23 as well.
watching, the documentary about Wrexham?
I keep meaning to, and I haven't yet.
It's really good.
I keep meaning to watch it, but I do follow. Like I look for Wrexham's results. Like I see how they're doing, and they're on the right track, man. Give it 5 years, they might make it all the way up to the Premier
It's
League.
been a good investment for those two.
Oh yeah, for sure. And it's going to be fun if they do make it all the way up. It's going to be a big deal. So I'm excited for them. It'll be fun.
how about JJ Watt's team?
They suck. They're really bad. They shouldn't be as bad as they are, but they've had a really tough season so far. They will probably finish in the bottom 3 and get relegated out of the Premier League.
I love that aspect of European soccer.
Me too.
Promotion and relegation.
I don't understand why they don't do it here. The NHL was talking about expanding a bit, and I think that it would make a lot of logical sense to create that A League, B League kind of thing and start it off as a segregation between the United States and Canada. Because they have so much room to expand in Canada with such a popular sport. Right now it exists, I think it's Edmonton, Montreal, and Toronto are the 3.
Vancouver.
Oh yeah, wait, there's way more. Vancouver, Calgary.
Yeah.
So there's 5 Canadian teams, I believe.
Can they even expand anymore?
There's probably a little bit of room. But yeah, maybe that's not the right way of approaching it. What I was thinking was it would be like the Canadian teams plus the expansion teams. So like say that they add another 3 teams. You have 8 teams in the B League. But I mean, it's obviously shitty for any of those teams to be relegated.
It's probably all about money.
With.
It's probably all about money. I feel like in Europe, there's so many little like pockets that love soccer, and like getting relegated means really. I mean, I don't know. There's just so many teams possibilities. Like for hockey, I don't think there's enough fans.
The hard thing in football, soccer right now is that the money associated with being in the top leagues, particularly the Premier League, is so astronomically high that when you like teams are doing this thing where they spend a lot of money to try to get there because they know that they'll recoup that money if they do get there, and then if they don't, they're in a lot of trouble financially. And then
They're gambling.
right? And then if they get there and they spend a lot of money to try to stay there, but they fail and they get relegated, they're fucked as well. This is the pyramid of English football and how it looks. And that's what they call it. They call it the pyramid. They call it the pyramid, yeah. Because you have 4 leagues or 5 leagues at the top that are national, because it's a small country, so travel isn't an issue. You can have national leagues. There's no need for conferences or anything like that. And then only once you get to the 6th tier, National League North and South, does it start to split geographically. So you've got teams that have like no money and they can't even really travel from one end of the country to the other easily. So you start to split it geographically. But theoretically, a team can go from the very, very bottom to the very, very top.
Isn't it only like a 20-minute drive from one end of the country to the other over in Europe?
That's an exaggeration.
Bullet train.
It's probably you could get from one end of the country to the other in 6-7 hours probably.
Do you know if Patrick has a team?
Pads? I think he manages like an amateur team. I think.
Right. What is that? How does that work?
I don't know because it depending on what exact type of team that is. It may be. It's probably not a team that's actually within that structure because there's a lot of. Like I used to play casually in a team it was like a local league, but it's not within that structure. So no matter how well we did, we couldn't actually get promoted up. Yeah. Like there was basically. You have to get like approved. Your league has to be approved by the Football Association to be part of that structure. And there's a whole bunch of hoops you have to jump through. So you can set up a league and just play however you want. And I think that's probably what Pads' team is. I think it's probably just a casual recreational team that he coaches. But theoretically, if you get qualifications, if you get a coaching qualification, you can manage a team that's at the lower levels and you can take them all the way up to the top.
Have there been stories of teams that have been very, very low and now
Yeah, 100%. Right now there's a team in the Premier League, Luton Town, that they were, I think like 9 years ago or something, they were in the 4th or 5th tier and they've made it all the way up to the Premier League. Brighton and Hove Albion is a team that, what's funny, when I was in high school, 20 years ago, Brighton and Hove Albion, for a while, they were using my high school's playing field as their training ground because their training ground was getting renovated because they were in a lower league. They were a local team. They weren't like not a lot of money. Yeah. So they were using my high school's training ground. And now 20 years later, they're up in the Premier League. They're playing in European competition because they're a top 6 or 7 team. Their manager is one of the best young managers in the world. And they have a big stadium. They're a big team now.
That's wild.
Because they progressed all the way up. And so if you're an investor and you buy a team that's at a low level and you implement the right policies, you hire the right people, over time you can get results. You can build up, and you can be one of the elite teams. So it's a really cool structure in that way.
Who gives the EPL gives teams money?
There's a complicated structure for that.
Okay, you don't have to get into it.
Teams make their own money, but there is a system of if you get relegated out of the Premier League, the league gives you what they call parachute payments. So they do pay you some share of the TV revenue for a couple of years after you get relegated, just to make sure that you don't financially collapse after you get relegated. But that doesn't make it that much easier because it's not like they just give you infinite money, know. So there's a lot of complicated financial stuff going on.
I feel like this would work well with baseball. Like there's so many underserved, let's call it territories for lack of a better term, in the United States as far as like big baseball markets go. Like imagine when we, not even just when we were growing up, but just the truth of the matter is like the South is a baseball hotbed.
Yeah,
it's insane.
You can play year round.
Yeah, it's insane to think that there are no professional teams in the Carolinas. There's no professional teams in Virginia. There's no professional teams, outside of like it's Florida, Georgia, and then you don't really hit anything again until you get to Maryland.
That really does make no fucking sense.
Right, but it's a minor league hotbed.
Yeah,
right. Like
all the
there's just a
minor league
massive
teams.
concentration to minor league teams there. It would be interesting if instead of AAA, they had because like the AAAs have affiliations, right? It would be interesting if instead they created an independent league or a B tier league of some sort where they could actually compete to go into the major leagues and vice versa.
Yeah.
It'd be even as a Pirates fan.
I was about to say,
actually,
the Pirates would never
no, but it would be fucking
Get relegated.
It would be great. It would be great because the biggest reason why there's no competition at the small market, lower level teams is because there's no incentive for them to spend.
Correct.
So the Pirates just make money hand over
They
fist.
do. They're one of the most profitable teams in
and
baseball.
they've
as far as percentage-wise
curated
goes.
some of the best talent in the MLB, and they never pay them. They just let them move on to elsewhere. Well, if they get relegated, they can't make those profits.
Yeah, it's true.
So now all of a sudden, maybe they have to double their payroll and try to maintain at least average status, so that they don't just get blown out of the water by some up and coming Southern team that's curating local talent or whatever.
The other thing about promotion relegation as well is that there's absolutely no tanking in European sports. Like there's no such thing as we benefit more from losing than we do from winning.
You benefit
Because
less from losing.
Yeah, like if you get relegated, you're screwed. Like you're going to make a lot less money the next year. So in fact, the only times when games don't really have a lot on the line is when it's like the end of the season and you've got two teams that are in the middle of the league playing each other, where they're not going to win anything, but they're also not going to get relegated. So it's going to be like, do we finish 14th or 12th?
Yeah.
So that's when it doesn't mean anything. But even then, you do get more money for finishing 12th than finishing 14th. So like, it still matters. And there's no such thing as like, we kind of want to lose this
Tank
game,
for picks.
Right.
Yeah.
That doesn't exist.
I'm curious on how like it would start for baseball, because like you would have to start an independent league, right? But now you're taking away the farm teams from every league. I mean, I don't know.
I think the biggest thing for if U.S. sports were to do that would be that assuming that you remove the salary caps and everything, you would get like a massive shift in favor of the big market teams, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Because like if they removed it in baseball, presumably
Well, there is no salary cap in baseball.
Oh, there isn't?
No.
I thought
that's part of the problem.
I thought there was still something though that prevents like the Dodgers or whatever from just signing every good player. There's
I don't
not.
think so,
Okay.
No,
Okay.
they
Fair
sign
enough.
every good player.
Okay. Well, then maybe it
They
wouldn't be
do.
that different.
I mean,
but,
there's like diminishing returns in theory at some
Yeah.
point. Like if your payroll just exceeds more than you could possibly return, even winning a World Series, obviously it doesn't make sense. But yeah, then it's notorious for like the Yankees, the Dodgers, the Cubs, the Red Sox, a handful of large market teams to just go out and spend
Okay,
infinite.
and that does happen in soccer too. Like that happens where you get a team that will have an investor that comes in and buys out the team, and says we're just going to throw money at it. We're going to sign 10 players in the span of a few weeks, and we're just going to change the team from being mediocre to being one of the best teams. And
I guess
does
that's true.
happen
The
sometimes.
the luxury tax has a big impact.
Yeah, there's nothing
Well,
like that in
It
football.
has some impact. It doesn't really deter fully the large market teams.
I think Landon has
What do
a
you
question.
win when you win like a World Series or
Money.
But how much money? Do we know?
I mean, the majority of the money in baseball is from TV rights.
yeah.
So, like for the Dodgers, they just need to incentivize whatever fucking TV brand or whatever that's paying $1 billion for their rights to continue to re-up.
Then there's everything else that comes with it, right?
Right.
You're going to get more
Ticket
ticket
sales.
sales. You're going to get more jersey sales.
Well, you
you're
can
gonna
also
get more
hike all
right.
the cost for those things.
Yeah.
if you win,
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everybody wants.
so they
Yeah,
win.
you know what a ticket to a mid-season Pirate game costs?
Get good seats at PNC Park, baby.
$8.
So
I think you're overdoing
so
it,
the way
man.
they make more money is by gouging everybody else.
I mean, kind of. It's like any other product,
Yeah.
right? Like if you're superior, like
I ain't mad at it. I'm just asking if that's how it works.
The demand goes up,
Yeah,
so then
exactly.
obviously the price goes up. It's just an economic
right.
issue.
Steeler tickets are just generally going to be much more expensive than Jaguar tickets, right? Like there's a 9-year wait to become a season ticket holder for the Steelers.
Those Cleveland tickets might start going down.
Yeah, well,
Did you guys get the news this morning?
no.
Oh, you didn't?
Oh no.
Oh, the most Cleveland thing happened to Cleveland. So, I was talking yesterday that Deshaun Watson might not play because
Yeah.
he hurt his ankle.
And he's a pussy.
He's out for the season.
What?
He's out for the season, not because of his ankle. No,
No.
he has a broken shoulder, and they had season-ending surgery this morning.
Bro, that's so insane.
Yeah.
Where'd that come from? The shoulder injury.
He hurt his shoulder 4 weeks ago.
Well, no, but he heard it in like the first half.
Oh, he re-injured it.
He heard it in the first half, broke his shoulder, played the whole second half against the Ravens.
Okay, that's why
beat them, played great, beat them, and then they were like, "Well, you got to have surgery."
That's why I was gonna say it was insane. So he hurt his shoulder like 3 or 4 weeks ago.
Wow.
It was prior to the bye week, so maybe it was even 5 weeks ago, and they were projecting him to come back after the bye against the Niners. And the media was, basically grilling the coach because the coach kind of threw him under the bus and said, like, look, Deshaun's been medically cleared. He just doesn't feel fit to play.
Yeah.
And that's the way that they were packaging it. And there was a lot of back and forth because, for all the criticisms of Deshaun Watson, he's always been tough. He's kind of like muscled it out in a lot of big spots throughout his career, and everyone was just kind of saying like, should we be giving this guy the benefit of the doubt, or is this like he got paid and now he doesn't give a fuck and doesn't want to play kind of thing? And so that was the undercurrent for like the last 4 weeks leading up to Baltimore, where I think this is his first game back, maybe his second. But in any event, he sat out like many more weeks than the medical staff had cleared him for. He had been cleared for like many weeks prior to him coming back. And now he comes back and was actually playing with a broken fucking shoulder, which is insane. I mean, I doubt, I guess you're saying he re-injured it. So I doubt that there was a correlation between like what they had cleared him for.
Down bad med staff.
But, maybe there was some oversight here. He might have had like a stress fracture at some point or some sort that they missed. Good news for the Steelers, though. Bad news for Conrad.
Yeah, bad news for Conrad. Bad news. And they're not even going to go with P.J. Walker. They're going with a third string quarterback.
Stop it. Who is it?
Robinson,
P.J. Walker played well.
I think his name is Robin. I forget what his name is. Robinson something. I was.
Oh my God!
I like this.
You like this?
I like this.
I mean, he's a running quarterback. So
T.J. Watt is going to tombstone this man.
I hope
higher
he gets
than
up.
2 tackles.
He's going to. He is going to absolutely send this kid back to whatever.
His name is Dorian Thomas Robinson.
Sure.
Yeah.
A 3-name guy.
DTR.
DTR.
Isn't he a wide receiver?
No.
Oh, Conrad, how does this happen? It just gets worse and
How
worse.
could this happen to me?
Oh my God, Brown.
Honestly, I think I'd rather have PJ in there. I mean, this guy's
he played
like
really well.
No, he didn't play really well.
I mean, he beat the Niners.
He didn't beat the Niners.
Well,
the Cleveland defense beat the Niners. They won 19-17.
Yeah, I don't give a shit how it happened.
Who knows how many of those 19 points got scored from the defense?
No, he didn't give up any points to their defense. That's all that really matters.
Maybe he did. Maybe he gave up the 17.
I'm just saying, if you threw Trubisky in versus the fucking Niners, we weren't going to lose less than 38-3.
Yeah, I don't know. Either way, Deshaun Watson will not be playing for the rest of the season.
GG, my G.
And the Cleveland hopes and dreams
Dashed
your fate
the fucking
right in front of you.
Your fate sits right beside Brian.
His name is TJ Watt.
Oh man, what a great opening!
Wait a minute. When are we going to use Browns now for Survivor?
Oh, that actually does fuck us.
God damn it.
Nah,
we just don't use them anymore.
I think we were using them week 15 versus the Bears. We probably still will.
Berkey and I were talking about this last night, but it really, there's a true possibility that it could come down to the final game where we have the Ravens
to beat the Steelers.
We would need the Ravens to beat the Steelers with $9 million on the line. It could be 8-8, so it could be playoff implications and it could be slap implications. Everything, the whole universe could come down.
I want to live in Conspire Gate.
Right,
basically, Lamanna's conjuring.
He's like, what do I do? Do I root for my $9 million or do I root to not get slapped in the face? He's like, I don't know.
It's winner take all.
Yeah,
because it gets chopped with the people that still survive.
Would you rather get slapped in the face and take $9 million or vice versa?
You think it's the slap in the face that I would be concerned about?
No, it's what is it?
They want Steelers in the playoffs.
I want the Steelers in the goddamn playoffs.
Yeah, the thing is, I don't know if that might not even matter. I don't know if a 9-8 team will get in.
I don't think so. I think 10-7.
Yeah, I think 10-7. So that might not even matter, but it could. It could matter. It would be amazing if
at this pace,
the whole thing came down to that.
At this pace, that game could be for the division.
Yeah, it could be. It could be because if the Bengals win today. And then, or not today, tomorrow. The Bengals win tomorrow. They play the Ravens.
Yeah.
Steelers will be in first place, and then we'll see what happens the rest of the way out. But we got to play the Bengals.
Tomorrow's a good game.
Got to play the Ravens.
Tomorrow's a good game. Ravens play the Bengals. If the Bengals win, the Steelers elevate up to first place in the division. If the Ravens win, the Bengals' playoff hopes are all but dashed. So, it's good to be king, baby.
Is it
good to be king.
Is it in Cincinnati?
Good question. I'm not sure, and I don't care, to be honest.
It's in Baltimore.
You guys know the Browns.
Cleveland walked into Baltimore and won.
You guys know the Browns traded away Josh Dobbs, right?
I do know
they
that.
did.
You know the Steelers drafted Josh Dobbs, right?
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
He's an astronaut.
Yeah. It's
Genius.
I can't believe
He's
you
a
guys
rocket-
know that.
he's a rocket scientist.
Still talks about Coach T.
Rocket
He's been
Man?
on 6 teams. All he talks about is Coach T.
Of course.
That's right. All right, let's get to a little poker now that I've had my jollies and got it out of the way. We got a lot to catch up on. We're going to do some hand reviews from Game of Gold. The plan initially was to do the first 2 episodes based off of some feedback on Monday where everyone was like, we haven't watched the episode yet. Well, fuck that.
Fuck y'all.
Because I got to tell you, just looking at my Twitter feed, all anybody can talk about is a limp pot between Aces and Ace King, which tells me that the majority of you have watched the show. If you haven't, then here's your warning. Spoilers are coming. We're going to talk about episode 3 strategy.
Spoilers already happened. You already told them about
right.
the limp
All I
pot
said is
between-
that Aces and Ace King played
And
pot.
I think just to let everybody know, moving forward, we are going to talk about the current episode on the day of the episode.
No,
So
that's not true. We're going to do Tuesdays and Thursdays.
Okay, well, what the fuck me? I don't know. I thought we said we were going to do that because
With
people were...
the strategy, we will, but in general,
right.
it'll be
All
Tuesdays
right.
and Thursdays.
Okay.
Well, there's not any
Whatever
point.
he
Not
said.
really any point in doing Thursdays because there's no episode between Wednesday and Thursday. So we're going to do strategy on Wednesday for the episode that's just come out, and then Thursday you're not going to have anything left to talk about.
That's true.
Thank you, Hunt.
That is
See,
true.
this is why you need me. This
It
is why
is,
I'm
yeah.
here.
All right, well, I guess we're doing Tuesdays and Wednesdays.
Cool.
Anyway,
Wait, Monday,
you know
Monday,
what?
Wednesday, Friday.
When the episode comes out, just watch it. And then you'll be prepared.
watch the episodes. We'll talk about
Be
whatever we
prepared.
feel like talking about. How about
Yeah,
that?
that seems to work.
It sounds like the podcast, anyways.
Yeah, I think so.
All right, so I guess how do I want to approach this? All right, so I guess first and foremost, we should probably break down what the structure of the actual game show is. More so in the poker aspect. It doesn't really. We could talk a little bit about the meta aspect of the game in within the game, I guess.
We don't even really know fully what all the rules are yet. Like and
Yeah.
how it's going to break down to people getting eliminated and so
Right.
forth.
Yeah.
There are some things I think we can anticipate, but basically it's presented as round 1 is going to be a team game. We can assume that somewhere down the line it's going to be an individual game since it is a winner take all type contest. But round 1 is 4 sit and goes, 4 four-handed sit and goes, I should say, where each place is worth a different number of coins, and each round of those 4 sit and goes escalates in coin accumulation. We don't know what the 4th round is going to be. There's some
Still hidden,
speculation that it might be winner take all. There's some speculation that it might be just heavily weighted towards the top 2 spots. We're not sure. It seems like it's going to be a bit of a monkey wrench. But with what we do know for the first 3 is that the 3rd match is worth a hell of a lot more. I think it's worth 2.5x-ish more than the first match was. And the basic goal is to acquire coins. So there is a little bit of ICM to consider in these. Before we get into the actual hands being broken down, what are your thoughts, Matt, since you haven't really given any yet? What are your thoughts on the way the teams chose to allocate their players for the sit and goes?
So I think that overall, I was quite surprised that people didn't seem to be considering the fact that the overarching structure of the whole series is winner take all.
Right.
Like, I think that everybody's been focused on like their team. And the only one I've really heard talk about the individual aspects of it was David Williams.
Yeah.
Where he said you should want to go in the last game because it's going to have the most coins for it.
Right.
I think that everybody so far has been really preoccupied with, I want to make sure my team gets to the next round. But I think that the people who are like, basically, I think you should be a lot more aggro early on because whether your team makes it through is mostly going to be variance one way or the other. Like four-handed sit and goes, like there's a lot of variance there. But whether you get through to the later stages with more coins or not, that's for you individually in a winner-take-all prize format. That's going to make a lot of difference.
Would you do you think you'd want to go 3rd instead of because it says it's hidden. Do you think they would ever throw a monkey wrench in where like the fourth match is actually less coins than the third match?
It's possible that they might. I mean, it'd be kind of annoying if they did that.
I think it's more
Like,
probable that it's just like winner take all.
Yeah, I think it's very possible they'll do that. And I think that on some level, like maybe you have an incentive to do that. I would say at the bare minimum, though, there should have been more people wanting to go third or fourth. Like there should have been.
Oh yeah, you should be fighting to go third or fourth.
I was so surprised that certain people, like multiple people, were like, "I want to go first," or like, "I want the."
Yeah, Andy like begging to go first was wild.
I couldn't believe some of these people doing that because like when you go first, when you're like almost guaranteeing that even if you win, you're not going to get very many coins, and it just sets you up to be in a much more difficult spot later on.
I think they also like massively discredit how difficult it is to win a four-handed sit and go. Or not difficult, but like how unpredictable it is.
Yeah, it's just so much variance. Like you just, I don't think you can really attribute anything more than small skill edges here and there. And with the stacks being as shallow as they are, like I honestly don't think it matters a ton for the purposes of the team. Like I don't think you really are likely to improve your chances that much one way or the other by picking a certain player because, you know, I think there might be certain players where like if you took like the best player who's in this and the worst player, there's a significant skill edge. But between the majority of players who are in the middle of the pack in terms of skill in this, there's not going to be a big edge here and there. I think in general, everybody should have probably been thinking more about themselves and advocating more for themselves to go later in the field, you know, go later in the sit and goes. And I was surprised that they was taking such like a team approach.
You get coins for every place you finish, right? So you even get fourth.
Yeah.
So like I think like if you get like second in the first round is almost the same as getting fourth in the third round or something like that.
I think
pretty close. So it's just like you're like auto profiting just by going later.
Well, I think well, not necessarily. It could be winner take all, but I think
not in the third round.
Sure.
Yeah.
But I think the big thing that was misleading that is helpful for the actual cast and crew, but harmful for the contestants is that they completely overlooked the individual aspect and overvalued the team aspect in the sense that if we did a Monte Carlo sim, we can all agree that like the D-Negs, Kuhn, Kmart, and Soyza team is by far the strongest.
Oh, they're like light years ahead.
Light years ahead of everybody, right? If we did a Monte Carlo sim, I bet that they win like 27% of the time.
Yeah, which is a lot considering.
Or let me rephrase. I bet that I bet that they're eliminated like 23% of the time.
Yeah, it's
as opposed to a fair quarter. Right. But
you think it's only 2%?
I think it's small. I think it's really small. If you run infinite sims, I think that they're all going to regress to being eliminated about a quarter of the time.
And it probably does depend in some regards, like what the structure of the last match is. Like hidden coins is still important.
Yeah.
It could be a lot.
Yeah, but even still, if it becomes winner take all, now there's even more variance in the final round. Right? So even if Jason has by far the biggest edge over the field, he still only wins a small unfair amount of the time.
Yeah, I think the main thing that's really relevant to the teams choosing who's going to go when it comes to the final round is you want somebody in the final round who's going to understand what the adaptations are that they should make based on the spot that their team is in and the eventual and the unknown structure of the final round, right? So like Jason is going to understand that with his team going in with the fewest points, he's going to understand he needs to play for the win. He's going to know in each individual spot what the play for the win strategy looks like as opposed to the sort of ICM ladder strategy looks like. There are other combinations of people that you could have picked, maybe not on Jason's team because his team is the strongest team, but there are definitely people in that field who, if they were in the fourth game, and their team was in a very specific spot, I wouldn't necessarily think they would have as good of an idea of how to adapt. So I do think it's important you put someone with that adaptability in the fourth spot. But as a whole, yeah, I mean, I certainly think there's just a ton of variance in this first round. And I think that I'm really surprised that people are not sort of advocating for themselves more or just like trying to go all out to get coins early on, because they've already said coins equal big blinds.
Right.
Which implies in the final round, there's going to be something like maybe like a heads up match where how many coins you have dictates how many big blinds you get or something like that. So it's going to matter. And I'm really surprised people aren't like going for it more.
It's probably just like the safe. It's safer to play team aspect, especially if you don't want to lose first. 'Cause if you,
I disagree. I actually think that that's just a bit of a logical trap.
as in survive in advance is wrong, play for yourself and win.
Yeah, because I think that the way it basically breaks down is, everybody's going to get eliminated here roughly. I'm saying roughly as being very loose, right? Like, again, maybe the DNEG's team advances like 79% of the time as opposed to 75%. But again, like that 4%, it's worth something, but it's small, right? So roughly everybody's going to be eliminated about a quarter of the time. All you need to strategize for is how to maximize every time that you advance. Mm-hmm. And I think that is by far what everybody's critically overlooking. Yeah. And David is in the best situation because they just anointed him team leader, right? It's not like the Fedor Charlie camp where those two are going to kind of butt heads to be the alpha, or the Daniel Jason camp where those two are going to kind of butt heads to be the alpha a bit, or even the Josh Maria camp where at the end of the day, like no one's really going to defer to one another. David's team, they were just like all very much, I don't want to go last.
Yeah.
He was literally like, who wants to go last? And they're like, not us. And he's like, perfect, because I want to.
It's just the pressure of it all. And I think part of that's like, it's hard in real time to want to carry the burden of group. I
just think that they're not thinking strategically.
Yeah, I think
they're getting wrapped up in the actual literal definition of what's being presented.
They're playing it like a satellite. They're playing it like it's a satellite where nothing carries over, and the goal is to get to the next round.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Problem is, things do carry over.
Okay, let's play the opposite way. Let's say everybody wants to go last. Mm-hmm. How do you deal with that?
That would be a fascinating iteration to watch play out.
That's what should have happened.
Rock, paper, scissors, obviously.
That's why I said it was good for casting and for production's sake, because there was no fight over this, so they didn't have to like deal with an entire day of 4 teams just bickering because they can't pick an order.
Because everybody wants to go last.
Right. In this instance, like people are bickering to go first.
Yeah, they probably just have to gamble.
Yeah. So what should probably happen is everybody bickers to go last, then everybody bickers to go third, yada, yada. And now production has to step in and create another game element to determine the order, right?
They might already had that on the back burner.
Yeah,
they might have been like, oh, you're just going to draw for it. If you can't make it decide, you're just going to pick cards.
Yeah, I think that's where it would have gone in the end anyway.
Right.
Like, because there were already elements of like, Kuhn was like, I don't care whether I go third or fourth. And he and Daniel literally, I think they played rock, paper, scissors or something.
They randomized 1-2.
Yeah.
Do you think it was random?
Yeah.
Do you think it was random?
Yeah.
I mean, he had Soyza behind him, like checking, right?
Yeah.
So, like,
yeah, but like, maybe him and Soyza
in cahoots.
Like, bro, all bets are off. It's a reality show. Like, all bets are off.
That's true.
So very well could have just been like, I'm gonna,
I don't think it matters enough that you would care to like.
I'm gonna roll over.
Hey, that's so funny you say that, because that literally happened on Big Brother this season. So it was they were like, there's an alliance of 3, right? Mm-hmm. But the 2 were kind of like working together, and then one was kind of not, and they had to put 2 up for eviction, or they had to put one of the 2 up for eviction. And what happened was the 2 got together and were like, hey, let's just make it look like it's random, and then we'll be like, hey, let's pick a number from 1 to 100, and whoever gets closest, the other person has to go up. But it was predetermined. It was predetermined.
Yeah.
So but the other person had no idea.
Right. Yeah. And honestly, like,
Scam FC.
Not that Daniel's a rube, but Daniel is going to be very trusting of things that look innocuous, and like that flip looks very innocuous.
Right.
But it could be very impactful on endgame, assuming Jason just goes in, wins the last round, picks up however many coins it's going to be worth. It might be worth 100 coins. Who knows?
I hope it's worth like 3 coins.
Well, it seems like it's going to have to be worth enough to get the whole team through. And I imagine that they're going to set it up for whoever comes in 4th place into the final round can still advance, right? Like you don't really want a team to just be eliminated based off the payoff structure.
You know what? I bet the reason that they kept it secret
It's so that they could do that.
so that they can decide.
I
Like
agree.
they can look at what the situation
I
is.
agree.
And they can decide based on what the setup is. Because if one team has won all 3 games, then that's going to be a completely different spot to where if they're all like level on points.
Right, they saved the last one, so just in case, if
So
you
they
win
can
it, your
just
team
they can
still
just
stay.
change
Smart.
it.
Yeah.
That's
They
really
don't want to
smart,
go in with no, like, some teams being basically already out of it.
Yeah, I could definitely see that being. Honestly, like the underlying strategy to all this is so fascinating to me. I love games. I love like picking games apart.
Games within games.
Yeah, I think that this is so much fun because nobody's going to be purely sharp. And I think that anybody who's just reliant on the poker side of things is dead in the
You
competition.
really have to adjust on the fly.
Yeah.
Which is great.
And
Most poker people are still gamesmen.
yeah, but like so are you. And I think that like if we presented this,
I would go last every time.
Well, you would try to go last, but that's because you are very confident in your poker ability. But if it came down to you and Kuhn, you're very likely to just defer to Kuhn.
I would go third.
Yeah. Right. And see, like, that's just an oversight of the underlying strategy.
Yeah, you should just go last. You should fight to go last.
Because at the end of the day, he's not going to help you.
Sure.
You're an individual on an island trying to accumulate the most points.
Well, now you play I'll call it other strategy part around it, where if all the best players are trying to play last, the chance that you win third is going to be higher.
Doesn't matter.
Well, you don't know what the point system is for fourth.
No, but you can assume that it's going to be higher, and it's very unlikely to matter long term. Like, you just always want to be going for the highest reward. Now, there are some players who I think are smart to defer and try to get carried along. Like, I think like some of the potentially weaker players are smart to just try to limp their way into the finals with a small amount of big blinds and then just run it out. Yep. Just because at the end of the day, there's still going to be a lot of variance in the finals. Getting there with a bunch of big blinds is nice because you have a big advantage. But if you're competent and you know how to play a short stack, getting there short is just very profitable. Like, just getting there is so profitable. And if you can limp along until some point in the game where, something changes and you now are the one who becomes valuable, that's a huge, huge upside.
Yeah. And I think there's also like if you're in a team environment and you perceive yourself to be the weakest player on that team, there's a huge, like, if you could convince one of the better players to go earlier, like, let's say you were
get the win first, and
well,
then
yeah, like if you were able to present that kind of argument, and let's say you can convince like a Jason or a Fedor or someone on your team to be like, hey, maybe you should go earlier and let me go later. You've like sneakily gained yourself quite a benefit for getting more coins, even if you finish fourth in the third place one.
Right. Yeah.
One of the better players has gotten fewer coins for going earlier.
Correct.
So like, it would have been really fun to see like one of the players who might be less experienced or weaker, like advocating for themselves to go later because they recognize they want the better players to go earlier on their team for later on. So like, there's so many elements to this, but I think in general, I'm really surprised that more people aren't like going for the win. David Williams is the only one so far who seems like he's there to win it for himself.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think Arieh gets it too, at least from the poker standpoint.
Yeah, I guess he wasn't talking about it so much, but like David Williams came in and like he didn't even want to show what card he got when they were doing the intro.
Right.
He was like, I'm here to fucking win. I like that.
Yeah. All right, let's get into some of the hands then. So we can go through the first 3 matches. There weren't a ton of hands. Obviously, the structure to this is relatively fast. 4-handed sit and go. Everybody starts with 100 big blinds. I think the levels go up every 30 minutes or so, and they escalate pretty quickly. It's a small blind ante format instead of big blind ante format.
That's kind of weird, but
does change things a little bit.
Yeah, it sort of makes it so that like normally you would think the ranges would be super wide, but they're a little bit tighter now because there's not so much of an ante. You know?
Here's a question.
Well, actually, I think they're probably about the same, right? Because it's short-handed.
Does the big blind still post the ante, or does the small blind the small blind post the small
would
blind?
assume so, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So I just thought maybe the big blind just posted a half of ante.
I think
or half a big blind.
Yeah, I think
the
that's
big
what
blind.
maybe.
The big blind ante is 10K.
Yeah,
Like
it's a big blind ante, but the size of the ante is one small
Right,
blind.
that's yeah.
I think that's what
It's a small blind ante from the big blind.
So the point I was trying to make is that it's probably not going to alter ranges that much as it would at a full table because it's equivalent, right? So a small blind ante 4-handed is equivalent to a big blind ante 8-handed.
Well, Yeah.
So like a cutoff range 8-handed is going to be similar.
I'm comparing it to like if you're at a final table of a live tournament.
Yeah.
Because then you're still going to have the big blind ante in play with 4 left.
For a while, when big blind ante was first introduced, they did this. They would scale down the ante as it got shorter.
I hate that. Like, just play more hands. Like,
right.
Fuck it. Put a 2 big blind ante out there. Like, I don't want. I don't want to have a reason to play fewer hands.
Yeah.
In a tournament.
I guess my point though is theoretically speaking, the adjustments aren't nearly as great as they would be if you actually did the opposite and doubled the ante.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like if you double the ante, it'd be crazy. Like,
right.
You'd be playing super wide. But yeah.
Ironically, you'd be like limping range.
Oh yeah.
In
you'd be doing like a bunch of stuff. It would be kind of really interesting. But, yeah. I think it's been obviously a pretty shallow structure, but there's been, I think, particularly in the early stages of each of the sit and goes so far, when you're like somewhat deep, there's been a few hands that were interesting. I thought we've seen a couple of people like make some pretty weird pre-flop plays. Like we saw
the kind of king 9 is like the first hand that comes to mind.
That was the one that was going to come to mind for me first as well. Like that just struck me as like nerves, you know?
Yeah, so I think this hand's interesting from a couple perspectives. Obviously, Kyna's pre-flop decision is one worth scrutinizing, and we don't have to go that deeply into it. It's just pretty clearly a raise fold.
Yeah.
But then Soyza's decision post-flop also was like pretty wild to me. You know, I understand where Kyna can make errors like this because you do have a high card hand and you're playing 4-handed. So like sometimes it's easy to over adjust.
Yeah.
Like the fact that it says undergun is obviously very misleading.
It is.
You're actually the cutoff.
Yeah.
And you know, it's not that far off. Like king 9 suited is a layup defend. King 10 off is probably clearly going to be a defend 100% of the time as well. So like, you know, you're a pip too wide. It happens. But and this might just be a byproduct of also not really being a sit and go player, not really being put in these situations all that often, and being against a tough competitor to your left. If anybody in this particular sit and go is incentivized to gamble more, it's probably Kyna.
Yeah, although I mean she's a tournament player. She understands the format fairly well. I think that, I mean, I don't want to necessarily say like where I think she ranks in this foursome, like because it's hard to say. You know, I think Soyza's the best.
Well, I just think we all know that Soyza's the elite player here.
Like between the other three, like I don't really know. I don't know enough about how they play, but I think in general, like to start out with, like as Kyna here, you want to be like not mixing it up with Soyza unnecessarily.
Yeah,
and
no, that's fair.
Doing the
I would like to gamble, not with these types of hands.
Right. Like I think that you know, you obviously want to still be continuing fairly wide against the 3-bet given the structure, but like this is just a hand that's going to get into so much trouble.
Yeah, so Soyza here gets a pretty good flop, 10, 9, 6, 2 spades. He has the ace of spades, so that's very favorable for him. He goes just shy of half pot, so about over. He goes about 70% pot.
Yeah, I like his sizing, just not with this hand. Like if you're gonna pick, if this is your size and you're gonna have some checks, this hand just is such a better check than this size. But I mean, it might just be exploitative. He might just be going for like max value from someone he potentially thinks is going to call too much.
I mean, you know, if he has any indication that she's in there as wide as she is with king 9 off, then perhaps he just
for sure
thinks she's going to pay off.
Right.
Does set up a pretty nice turn 1 SPR situation as well. And I imagine that he probably had in his mind, you know, kind of jamming for protection on some bricks.
It just strikes me as this is like, it strikes me as a value exploit line, because I think like theory wise he's probably supposed to check this hand at some point because it's such a good hand to protect his checking range with.
Right.
And it's like the best hand to protect his checking range with. And
you
obviously are going to have a decent chunk of hands on that flop that if your sizing that you're going with is 350, like more than half pot, you're going to have to check like your ace 5 of diamonds and shit like that. So like,
right.
It just makes sense to have this hand as a check back. But if he's just thinking that, I mean, Jason said in his analysis of this, like when he was watching it, Jason said maybe he's just trying to rep ace of spades king, and maybe she just calls with a 10 or something.
So I think that's fine. Like obviously we're highlighting these aces, but if he just has like kings instead, I think that this size is relatively
like kings,
fine.
Queens, jacks, I think make much more sense to do this line, to take this line.
Right. So it's like
aces specifically going.
Yeah, but if he's just adding that hand in because he has perceptions that she pays off, like it's not that big of a deal.
That's what
right?
I mean. That's what I mean by value exploit. Like he's just doing this because he thinks she pays off a little too much and stuff.
Right,
like
but
that,
it also complements his bluffs really well. So that was where I was going with this, is that it may not necessarily just be a value exploit. If he just takes ace, king, one spade and takes the same line where it goes big bet flop and non-spade turn jam, he's going to put her kind of in the cage with both portions of his range. And I imagine that's what he expected to do until the spade ripped off.
Mm-hmm.
Now when the spade rips off, everything changes, right? You're not going to jam ace king with a spade at that point. Like you're just going to go 2E. You shouldn't really be jamming like aces with a spade. Again, this just seems like a pretty clear 2E spot. You're not going to jam flushes. Those are going to be 2E hands, right? So your entire turn strategy is going to alter drastically when you set your flop strategy up for non-spade turns.
Yeah, it's a weird spot on the turn because we're at like a 1 SPR.
Yep.
And it's obviously really tempting to just have like a jam or check strategy there.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't like doing that in these spots because I just feel like the jam gets kind of easy to play against a lot of the time.
Agreed.
And it really restricts what kinds of hands you can jam.
Yep.
Like when you jam, you sort of have to have a spade in your hand.
Right.
It's
Either a spade in your hand or overpair no spade.
right. Like but it even then, like jamming like red queens here, it's just like it feels really dirty because sometimes you just get snapped and you're stone dead.
Yeah.
And I like having a 2E strategy here, but I also think that there are a lot of people who don't like doing that very much because it does get complicated when you're trying to 2E at an SPR of 1.
Quarter.
How so?
Well, I just mean like it's not easy to know what your bet call offs are, what your check backs are when you're betting, you're betting quarter pot on turn. Like there's a lot of hands which are pretty close between bet quarter and call it off versus check back.
Yeah.
So a lot of people don't like having those kinds of strategies. They prefer to just play the jam or check approach. And I don't think that's necessarily bad, but I do think especially with this particular combo, I feel like the jam on turn you probably just get a lot of folds, and I think checking or going 2E here probably functions a little better.
Yeah, I think 2E is a little bit bigger. I think it's like closer to 40, but
it is at 1 SPR.
Yeah, if you bet quarter, then you set up for a 75% turn or river jam.
Yeah, that's true.
Or half pot river jam rather.
2E at 1-1 is 36.
Okay, yeah.
36. Okay.
So yeah, just shy of 40.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's a little bit tricky, especially like when you're looking for bluffs to follow through on river for 36%
that's honestly
pot.
that's the hard part for me. Like if you're 2Eing on this turn after betting 75 on the flop or whatever, like what are you bluffing with?
Ace of spade.
But then you just have to call off. If you bet 36% on the turn with the ace of spades here and get jammed on, you just can't fold.
Yeah, but that's okay because like it's not going to be ace deuce off.
But then you're just having this is what I mean though. You're having no bet folds.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Like,
oh, yeah, I see what you're saying.
What are your bet folds?
I thought you meant on river.
No, I mean on
turn. Yeah,
on the turn. Like
you could probably have some hands like queen jack. Of the back. Oh no, you won't want the back door.
That's what I mean.
Like queen jack of diamonds.
Queen jack red. Like
yeah.
I just really hate like betting a third pot and then folding to a jam with 2 overs and an open ender there. Just
yeah.
That's kind of why I just feel like it's awkward. But I don't think it's bad necessarily.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, it's something that obviously he would probably know better than me anyway, since I'm not in these
exactly.
low SPR situations all that often. But I do think that jamming is a pretty big error, not just with this hand. I mean, it's got to be an error with this hand. You have to just be leaving so much money on the table with this hand. But with range as well, because of all the points that you mentioned, I think that it just kind of allows your opponent to play pretty freely against you. And I do think that you're like kind of weighted towards the naked ace of spades, which is maybe where his head went to in real time, is like, oh, I have so much naked ace of spades, maybe jamming aces with the ace of spades is a good way to ensure that I have enough value. But you do have a lot of overpairs with spades as well. You could easily take this line with sets. You could easily take this line with flop straights. That's a fair amount of combinations.
Yeah, I think a good way to look at these spots where you're all in before the river, particularly on the turn, is when you're jamming in a spot where your bluffs are going to have a decent chunk of equity.
Yeah.
In order to keep your opponent indifferent, you now need to be value. You need to stop value betting the very top of your range. Because you need your value bet.
Or value bet really thin.
Yeah, well, this is what I mean, though. That's what I mean. Like, you need to reduce the equity of your value bets to correspond with the fact that the equity of your bluffs has gone up.
Right. Like,
so you can't be truly polarized.
Yeah. So basically, to break that down a little bit further, what Hunt is advocating for is either having a smaller concentration of nuts, which, to be fair, we wouldn't jam the nut flush here.
Right. That's what I mean. You can't.
Right.
You
So it's like
that.
we're already eliminating like a chunk of our value that way. And then also perhaps adding some to the bottom where like maybe you're jamming a hand like, I don't know, ace 10, no spade for value there.
Yeah. I mean, that's
something that
seems
thin,
fine, I think.
right?
Like that hand is just like so vulnerable.
Or like nines with the 9 of spades. You know, something where you're getting, was there a 9 on the board?
Eights with the 8 of spades.
Okay, yeah, sorry. Eights with the 8 of spades. Yeah, sorry. Like eights with the 8 of spades, something like that, where you're just getting like insanely thin. Or maybe, oh no, I was going to say ace 9 of spades, but
I feel like
too good.
I feel like eights is like so thin. That
It's way too thin. Way too thin. Obviously, I'm just exaggerating the point at that point, but you know, it is one of those things where it's like it almost becomes more complex to build out a range that jams and performs well while still having to navigate your good hands.
Yeah.
Right. Like now it's like, well, what do you do with flushes?
Right.
Like now all of a sudden betting 37% pot for a geo size is really fucking polarizing.
Yeah.
But when you jam, it's super linear. This is just kind of like the inverse of how theory is supposed to be working.
Right. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah, so I thought that hand was pretty fascinating. Obviously, Kyna has an easy fold. It would have been interesting to see if she had King 9 off with a spade, specifically the King of Spades. She may have like just kind of leveled herself in that spot.
Yeah, that would have been a tough one, but you know, she without a spade, I think it's a pretty trivial fold.
Yeah, would have been pretty brutal. It didn't ultimately end up mattering. I don't think she was really in any other spots. She just kind of blinded off, jammed ace 8 off, got called by ace king.
Yeah.
There were a couple spots that Nikita played with ace queen that I thought were interesting.
Her fold, ace queen fold was wild.
Both of them.
Ace queen suited. Yeah, both of them were pretty wild, but the first one I thought was probably worse than the second one.
Yeah, so we talked about this a bit on Monday. I guess like just give us your overall thoughts, both from a ICM standpoint and then from the team standpoint.
Yeah, I think just like I think this is a great example of people just overestimating the impact of ICM. Like I just think there's an ICM element, but you can't afford to make it binary where it's like I'm only going to get it in with very top of range.
Like your risk premiums would never be that high,
exactly.
right?
Like there always has to be, and this is a really good rule of thumb for tournaments as a whole. Like there's always going to be a region of hands that you have to get it in with, but you're not happy about it. It's like a fundamental thing. Like if you
nightmare for the tortoise,
right? Like if you're only getting it in with the hands where you're like happy to get it in, you're probably getting it in way too tight. Like ace queen suited is just one of those spots where like I think Jason pointed it out. He's like, you need 27% equity for all. Like it's not great, but yeah, kind of can sometimes jam worse. And you're getting such a price because you made it 5x, which is good. Like her 3-bet size is really good.
Well, you can call off.
Yeah, you just can call off. You should call off. It's not even all your chips. Like this is the thing. It's not like Nikita's actually calling off her whole stack.
Oh wow, yeah.
She's calling off 1.4 when she has 1.9. Like it's so tight to fold ace queen suited there.
Right.
And so I definitely didn't like this one. And kind of jamming jacks is obviously trivial. But she can jam some ace 5 suiteds there. Like
I also think that it goes back to that element of controlling the uncontrollable.
Yeah.
That I was kind of speaking of to begin with, where they all come in with this team mindset of like, well, I want to help advance the team.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be a part of the fourth team that gets eliminated. We know this for sure. One team is absolutely getting eliminated, and individually you'll have very little control over that. It's the same thing in hands like this. It's a 4-handed turbo sit and go where you're going to be playing sub 10 big blind stacks not very far in the future. Passing on plus EV edges is absolutely a massive no-no for the sake of being there when it matters later. Like, there was another hand in, I believe, episode 2 where Kmart open jammed the button with queen 10 suited for 14. And it's just good.
Yeah.
And Dean Eggs was so beside himself because he wanted to play raise fold there because he was saying how since the stack distributions were so even that the small blind would have to play insanely tight and not 3-bet enough. Therefore, when we got 3-bet, we would have an easy raise fold kind of stuff. And it's like you're so massively overvaluing the variables of this game format that do not matter.
Yeah, ICM's a jammer's game too, where if you jam first, you take away the other people's ability to jam, and if you raise, you give someone
That's
the
what
ability
Jason's
to jam.
point was. He was like, ace 8's just going to slam it in your face all day if you open. Whereas if you open jam, ace 8's going to fold.
Right.
And like that's very valid. And D-Negs was basically saying that like, no, ace 8 will just fold to the open because everybody has to play so insanely tight. And that's just like fundamentally false. You know, you're already guaranteed some amount of coins just for entering the match. And it's a hyper turbo. Yeah. Like people do not play turbos to just like blind off and die.
It's button small blind versus a mini of an ace block. Like, it's good. Ace 8's good enough.
Yeet it. You know?
Yeah, because I mean, it's like what Matt was saying, where you have hands that are uncomfortable, but you just have to do it. That's queen 10.
Right.
You don't want to raise, fold it. You don't want to limp. So there's only one option.
Yeah, and honestly, the uncomfortable spots are where a huge portion of the edge in tournaments lies. Like if you are not willing, if you're only willing to get it in the spots where you actually feel like physically comfortable about it, where you don't feel like shit, I really don't want to call.
Yeah.
Like if you're only willing to get it in those spots, you're not going to make a lot of money.
Right.
And I had a spot actually the other day in the NAPT event that was very similar to this, where it was like it felt really uncomfortable, but I just had to get it in. It was like I had 25 bigs. We were like 2 spots off the bubble. We'd been hand for hand for a long time.
It was a very long bubble for some reason.
Yeah, like I had like 24 or 25 bigs. Giuseppe Pantaleo on the button opens. I'm in the small blind with 24 or 25 bigs. King Jack of hearts. I just have to rejam because I can't flat because I just get pushed off the pot every time because he has me out chipped. The big blind is, not that short, but there's like a rec player. It's just a spot where I can't like 3-bet fold. I can't find some way to flat and like try to navigate because I just lose like a third of my stack, such a high frequency.
You just got to raise fold so much.
Yeah, right. Like, and he's opening like 70% of hands on the button.
He's opening deck.
Yeah, he's opening possibly everything. And so I just have to rip it. And I know that if I rip it and he just like snaps, it's like, fuck, I'm going to bubble this tournament.
Yeah.
Sometimes you can flip versus 8s.
Yeah, right, yeah.
Have 50 bigs.
Yeah, exactly. But like you just have to take those spots and you have to be willing to expose yourself to that variance.
Yeah, and I think that like, the fact that it is a game show on top of this, the fact that there is another level of strategy that's underpinning all of these decisions, the fact that, in Nikita's instance, she was like kind of coached by Fedor, don't get fourth.
Yeah.
And then puts herself in a very volatile spot to get fourth.
He mind melded her. He brain drained her.
It's so funny that Fedor was the one saying don't get fourth.
Well, the irony is like, again, think of it from an individual standpoint. That's genius. She's only useful to him in advancing the team beyond, right?
You know what I mean? Yeah, you're
he
right.
doesn't care if she wins.
Faced Fedor saying don't get fourth. He's out here trying to get second.
Next level strats.
Don't fucking trust the Germans or the Svens. Okay? Never trust a German. If he says don't get fourth, aim for fourth.
I'm impressed that you've made the distinction between the Svens and the Germans.
Well,
you're learning.
At one point they were all one and the same, but I'm going to get a little more culture
You're learning
here.
that Sweden and Germany are not the same place. Yeah.
Who knew? But like I think that it is worth acknowledging that all of this pressure is underlying in these decisions. These decisions aren't easy to begin with.
Yeah.
Especially like if this isn't your forte. Like I'm not a sit and go player by any stretch. And I don't have a ton of experience in modern day MTTs either. So I would certainly feel a lot of pressure to be right in my decision making there. But I think that whenever you remove the poker, which is the actual proper way to think about this, remove the poker aspect. It's just the vehicle to making it round by round down to the finals and things like that. We get our ego involved. We say, well, we're professional poker players. We got to make good decisions. We got to look good on camera, yada, yada, yada. Forget all that. When you remove the poker and you actually think about the bigger picture strategy of like, okay, how do I individually benefit the most? If you're Nikita, it's fucking flipping. It's getting it in with ace queen suited there and saying like,
and say, okay, Fedor, you can win. You keep the team going.
Exactly.
Right?
Like whatever happens here, I'm fine with it. I'm going to have 500K in chips afterwards. I can navigate a short stack. If I win this, I put myself in a position to accumulate a lot of coins. Now, don't get me wrong. It worked out in her favor. But again, I think Soyza made some pretty big errors when they were three-handed. He and Nikita had basically a similar stack. She had like 1 million. He had 1.2. And Olga had like 4. Olga's open jamming every hand because they're 10 blinds effective. And Soyza's like folding ace 8.
Yeah.
Like you just can't. It's a recipe to get third or second. Where again, just winning is worth so much more, especially in the early round, right? Like you have to think of these
as a different hand.
Different hand.
Yeah, different hand. But you have to think of these as your coins.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And you're basically saying, like, I'm willing to sacrifice the 30 coins up top to finish somewhere on average between second and third for like 18 coins or,
Right.
or
It's
whatever.
like the funny team ICM, but personally, you don't want to play ICM because it's a winner take all game.
Right.
Especially in Soyza's spot where like you're on the strongest team. So like you
need to win.
You definitely need to win because they've already taken more coins out of your pocket by putting you first.
Right. Like if you're going to play early, you play to win.
And that's
Like,
also
100%.
the being on the strongest team is also weird because you know that if you advance, the field is stronger than what
Right.
it would be if you didn't.
Right, exactly.
You're forced to continue against a tough field because your team is so good.
Yes.
So like you have less equity against that tough field.
Yeah,
Agreed.
especially, I guess that's kind of the idea is the earlier the round is in the tournament, the less team ICM matters because you can rely on your team to potentially win. Where you don't really want to try to play team games early, you want to play the team game late, where if Kuhn knows he needs to get second to advance his team, and if he doesn't get second, he's going to die in the process.
Yeah.
Now
That's
he's going to
different.
play ICM.
Of course. And he's the only one. It's only whoever goes fourth that should have that burden.
Right. But people did the inverse.
Correct.
Where they said, oh, I want to help my team not bust. And it's like,
Correct.
hey, it's not your job. Your job is to try to win.
And there's also the element where like you want to not play ICM, but you want your team to think that you're playing ICM.
I'm a team
Because-
player.
Exactly.
You want them all to play ICM.
Exactly.
So you have to go in and like try to level your team and make them think that you're playing for the team, but actually you're just playing for yourself.
And I do think that that's like just a general misunderstanding maybe of the inner workings of these game shows and how manipulative they are and how much you actually have to consider all of that meta. I will say that I think Kevin Martin like didn't think much about all that stuff. He just kind of went in and played, you know, a good winner take all type of strategy. The Queen 10 obviously is a very good jam. He gets unfortunate, finishes fourth in that one. Then we see a scenario heads up where I think Arieh actually was quite considerate of how important the coins are and how little the poker actually matters. He actually backed himself into the correct decision, but be that as it may, the reasoning behind the decision is actually more important from my perspective as why he'll be a strong competitor than actually arriving at the decision itself.
Yeah.
So the hand was heads up. He limps King 9 off as a 3-1 dog in chip, or sorry, a 2-1 dog in chips versus Charlie. So he can flip the stacks if he doubles. And basically he thinks it's a limp fold, which it's not for 14 or 15 big blinds or whatever. But nevertheless, he basically arrives at, you know what? I'm just going to gamble this spot because Charlie, you're better than me at heads up. I don't know what I'm supposed to limp call. I don't know what I'm supposed to limp jam. Like he was going to limp jam it. But you know, he's just not going to face many raises. When he does, they're going to be whatever. It doesn't matter. In any event, he's not that certain on ranges. He knows Charlie is. He's not that sure of how he's going to gain an edge heads up, but he knows Charlie does know.
Yeah.
So he just says, fuck it. King has a good hand.
Fuck it, we ball.
I'm in. We can flip the stacks right here. And if that's the case, then I put myself in a pole position to actually win the most coins in this particular round. I mean, that's precisely what happened. Charlie jammed the Jack 10 suited, probably better served as a raise call off. Kind of too good, I think, to just like open jam.
Not a lot of good happens here.
Yeah, you kind of just get called by better and get worse to fold.
You had to read. Yeah, he tried to get better to fold.
That's true. That is true.
And then Josh was
Almost
going
worked.
to do it, and then he said, like, never mind, just kidding.
Yeah, it did almost work.
Can I just say what I love about these segments where that they show the teams like watching on.
Yeah.
What I love is that everybody thinks everybody else sucks.
100%.
This is such a microcosm of poker as a whole because every team is like, how does he fold there? How does he call there? Like, come on, please don't fold. Don't be a nit. Like all this stuff. Everybody thinks everybody else is terrible, and it's so funny to me.
I just love watching Jungle sleep.
Yeah, Jungle just like not caring is classic Jungle.
Jungle's
as well.
playing the individual game,
And
man.
then the other thing that I really enjoy is Jason in particular, but a lot of them like basically calling everyone else a whale, but like trying to do it really politely.
Yeah.
Just being like, oh, that's a weird call.
I
You know
mean,
what It's like,
all I've seen throughout 3 episodes is 14 people self-reporting And then Fedor and Jason kind of like, Fedor just not saying anything. Like literally just like, we have 16%. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
And then Jason just kind of being like, a lot of heart, kid. A lot of heart. Respect the heart.
Like there was a
total punt, but like completely respect the heart.
Like they're all so patronizing sometimes as well. Like I think one of the most patronizing things is like Maria gets a bluff through and Nikita's like, I'm proud of you for getting that bluff through. I was like, come on.
She was not being patronizing at all though. She genuinely meant that.
Maybe it was genuine, but if anyone ever says they're proud of me for getting a bluff through, I'm gonna feel really slighted.
Yeah. Well, Nikita probably just doesn't bluff enough.
Yeah,
in general,
that's true.
right? So like she actually truly is happy for Maria to pull that trigger.
Yeah, I don't
and
think
get
it was.
through.
I don't think it wasn't genuine, but it just.
Yeah.
If I was Maria, I'd be like, come on.
It's like if I have Jack 8 here and someone says like, oh, thank God you bluffed here. I'm like,
yeah,
you've got to be joking.
Yeah, they don't think a lot of you. Yeah. Exactly.
All right. Well, now that we're on to episode 3, we can talk about a few of those spots. Poor Robin, man. He really went through the. So his name is Lukas Robinson.
Lucas
Robinson. Okay.
Is his name, but he goes by Robin Poker.
Okay, so he was my
dark horse?
my
sleeper pick.
Yeah, he was my pick to click, my dark horse. I still like him a lot, but he had a real rough go of it in this third sit and go.
He had some rough spots.
It was weird because on one hand, he had the best hand more than anybody else, I think, as far as distribution goes. Mm-hmm. But on the other hand, he was also dealt some of the shittiest spots in the sense that, yeah, he had the best hand, but they weren't exactly easy ones to make a lot of money. Mm-hmm. He had a set on a 4 flush where he arrived at the proper call on the end. He folded a chop versus Maria for a small size, which is obviously a big error, kind of just leveling himself. Yeah. And I think that kind of set the tone for his entire sit and go. He kind of just like leveled himself time and time again, right? Mm-hmm. He self-admittedly hasn't played live very much, certainly hasn't been on camera very much, but he is an online streamer. He fancies himself a sit and go player. He knows what he's Landon, deep down, he's a sim.
Yep.
He's a disciple. He's out there.
Got to raise those 6s though.
He's out there worshiping the Svens of the world. But yeah, that was another one, right? Where Yo block bet river for 1 blind.
He led in the 4 people for 1 big blind.
Different hand.
This one was heads up.
Oh no, it was the same hand.
Same hand.
Yeah. So
he
Yo
spiked the turn.
Yeah.
Oh,
was it a min raise pot or a limp pot?
It was a 4-way raised pot.
Right.
Yo
Ace King X
donks the small blind for min bet on Ace King X, which I didn't. Jason was like, "That's not a thing.
Definitely
not a thing.
Not a thing." Imagine leading multi-way into a pre-flop aggressor.
Yeah.
On a board texture where they get to have overbets.
Right.
Right? Like Ace King 5-2 tone. You know what I'm going to do? You know what? This happens to me at the Bellagio all the fucking time. Where I just get donked into on a board where it's like, buddy, I was going to bet 150% pot if you checked me. What the fuck is going on here?
Well, this is what happens with when you play poker with French people. The French are unpredictable.
That's true.
Table.
That's
really
true.
Are.
There is
They're
unpredictable,
one of the most unpredictable countries.
Yes, that's true. They are absolutely as unpredictable as the whales I play against at the Bellagio.
Mm-hmm. there's a list of like really unpredictable countries. It's like France, Russia, Brazil, Italy.
Unpredictable. I'll tell you exactly what his 2 cards are every time he leads in that spot. Top pair, a gut shot, or a flush draw, and that's it. You will see absolutely nothing else.
Yeah, that might.
And
be,
the top pair
true.
Is probably going to be a hand that should have squeezed pre.
But then that's because you know how Yo plays.
I know how my whales in the Bellagio play.
The average random French player though, like they're a little bit more unpredictable than that.
Yeah, maybe.
The Brazilians too.
They're going to find the 3 deuce suited there.
They're going to find something.
They're not going to do it, I hope, because it's just not great. But anyway, it folds to Robin then, who has pocket 6s, which he does not have a diamond, and it probably is an appeal. I know that they were kind of criticizing.
It's not appeal. Yeah,
it's not, but it's like
at least have the diamond in your hand, so your outs are clean.
Yeah, but you're facing 1 big blind.
Hey man, if you get checked, you just bluff later. It's fine.
I kind of don't hate it. Like, yeah, you're not going to show the hand down, but you're getting 7-1. To just rip off a 2-outer and maybe make some money.
I mean, if he's doing it with the intent to like make sure that he bluffs with this hand later, then I don't hate it.
Agreed.
But I think if he's doing it just because he's like, well, maybe he has Queen Jack and I win.
Yeah.
That's not good.
Yeah, I agree with both of those points. And I'm not sure what his intent was because the turn was the 6 of diamonds, which is
just drills
fucking gin.
Mm-hmm. Just drill it on the turn.
Yo leads again, I think, for maybe 3/4 pot or 66% pot on the turn. It might have been half pot, whatever.
Like, what is this line? Like,
Right.
what is ace 10 black doing leading twice on this board? Like, it's just.
Well, it's a part of the completed range that I told you, Hunt, which is flush draws,
Top pair,
gut shots, and top pair.
Yeah,
his
fair
gut
enough.
shots now have gut shot plus flush draw. His top pair has to bet for protection. And
his
everything
flush
else,
draw
is a
got
flush.
there.
Everything else is a flush. He's uncapped, bro.
Uncapped,
Quit
bro.
your capping. So Robin now has a set. I think calling here again is totally fine.
Yeah, I think that's fine.
You could still improve. He could certainly have flushes. He is choosing to bet twice into a fairly uncapped range. So calling with a set here seems very reasonable. River is an offsuit 10, which does complete Queen Jack for a straight, of course.
His top pair now makes 2 pair.
And now Yo has 2 pair. And he elects to bet 10%-ish.
He bets like 40 into some insane amount.
Yeah, less than 10%.
Yeah,
I think
just like super block.
so. He bets 2 big blinds into
Super block.
Yeah, he bets like 8% pot here.
He goes block bet 30% super block.
The super block. No, the turn was big. Turn he bet
It was
like
140 into
He bet like 60%.
Yeah.
60 or
490.
60%.
140
I
to
think,
390.
yeah,
Is it 390 or 490?
390 because
So
the
that's like-
final pot is 530.
That's
Okay,
less
yeah.
than half.
Um,
140
No,
to
no,
390.
no. It was 390 after the bet.
Oh, after
correct.
the bet.
Yeah.
So he bet big.
40 into 250.
50.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
60%.
Yeah.
That's what I said.
And then he blocks River for somewhere around
So-
10% pot, and Lucas just snap calls.
Yeah, so block, mid bet, super block.
And it's like, bro, we got to raise this river. I know the 2 straights
Yeah.
got there. I mean, if Yo shows you 7-8, like, God bless him.
Godspeed.
He's never going to 3-bet you with Queen Jack. So, like, whatever, you don't care if sometimes you value own yourself. Like, these are still those spots where it's like, it's very important that
He
you
was
don't miss.
60 into
Oh, he
590.
went 60. Okay.
So B10.
Yeah.
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 Bet 10%.
Yeah. So it's like, I think we have a very clear half pot raise. There's still plenty of worse that can call.
Yeah, you just raise to like 375,
Do you ever-
400.
You probably have
Yeah.
2 raise sizes. You probably jam too. If you have a flush yourself.
Yeah, I think you have 2 sizes.
I think so too.
So then if Yo just rips it in, you
You just fold a set.
just fold.
Yeah, you would just fold a set.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very trivial.
He's just never bluffing there. Once
He is, but you just have way better hands to call with. You're at
Right.
the absolute bottom of your value range.
Gotcha.
You would call
Yeah.
with like a straight and a diamond.
A set,
Yeah.
a set is like your value raise fold hand
Yeah.
on the river. Like
Set 2 pair.
you can't really raise 2 pair on the river. But
Right.
You can raise a set to get called by
Yeah.
2 pair.
The important,
Yeah, I think it's important because I think, and not particularly this player, but like people think like I don't want to raise with the. I have a strong hand, but I don't want to raise with this hand on the river. I don't want to get thin value because what do I do if he jams? Right. So like
Yeah.
So, you already know what you do if he jams.
Well, a lot of people don't. A lot of people don't, and
right.
that's why I wanted to
That's the
bring this
point.
up because that's the point. Because like, what do you do when he jams? Like, you're like, okay, you're at your, like you said, the bottom of your value.
I think
range,
it's
right?
also there's something to be said for like cross that bridge when you come to it. There's something to be said for the fact that the
or
jam,
if you trust yourself.
Yeah, but like
Yeah.
the jam
Yeah.
is a very low frequency thing
Right.
to happen. It's certainly much more likely that he just calls your raise than
Right.
jams. So the first thing you should be thinking about is, can I get value from raising? And the answer is definitely yes, because when he blocks river, doesn't have a ton of flushes, he has a lot of 2 pairs, so you can raise.
Yeah, I had a hand at Bellagio. It's very important the way that you think about how the structure works too. Whenever you bet and you plan on calling or folding, you don't want to think about it of how many bluffs does he possess. Does he bluff in this spot? Yada yada yada. You want to compartmentalize like what all your value is. So I had a spot where I opened the button with Ace King offsuit Ace of Hearts and got called by the small blind big blind. It came like 7-3 deuce 2 hearts 1 diamond. Check, I bet. Small blind calls, everyone else folds. Turn is an offsuit ace. Check, pot, call, river, offsuit jack. Check, pot, 5x pot. And I just snap muck. And I was mad at myself later because I got shown a bluff. He showed me 7-3 of diamonds. And I got mad at myself because I was like, that's so dumb. I should have sniffed that out, or I should have at least taken some time to sniff it out. But then I realized, like, no, you dummy. You have so many better hands. That is absolute.
Right. You are
bottom,
snapping it off with a lot of hands.
Right. Like that is
Yeah.
the stone bottom of range.
Right.
That I would value bet. I guess Ace Queen would probably be the bottom of range that I would ever have a value bet there for.
It's pretty down.
Yeah, and I block the Ace of Hearts here, so it's like I can consider other Ace Kings, I could consider other Ace Queens, like whatever. But like you have to be folding at a pretty high frequency the absolute worst hand that you're going to value bet or that you're going to raise for value.
Right. Like otherwise, you're getting into the territory where you have to have a really high level of confidence that they're over bluffing drastically.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of spots where you just don't have that confidence. Like it's really hard to find spots where people are just massively over bluffing.
Especially in a spot like
where
it goes bet, raise,
check
jam.
5x pot. There's just not very many over bluffs for the 5x pot.
Yeah, it's like in my situation, I'm going to have 5-4 to call off with. I'm going to have 2 pairs to call off with. I'm going to have sets to call off with. Like, there's just no reason to reach unless you're positive that this guy's just losing his mind versus 2 pot-sized bets, which it's like, obviously he was. How he continued through the turn isn't, unknown to me. But, like, I was very close to just checking my hand back on the river, right? Like, there's just a lot of ace-jack in this small blind range.
Speaking of checking back on rivers, how about we talk about the Maria versus Johan?
Yeah, I guess we should get to the final hand of episode 3. So heads up, spoiler alert, Maria and Yo go heads up. Yo has a 2-1 chip lead. There are 10 blinds effective. Maria limps ace king here.
They 10? Hold on.
Yeah, they are 10 effective.
Yeah, exactly 10.
150, 300. Which is 2.9.
So she's gonna limp ace king. Probably fine.
Yeah, I
imagine it probably plays a mix of limp and jam. Maybe you still have opens at 10.
I think
I would limp this one.
I think we play limp or jam. With range wise, like we have some limps and some jams, and I think ace king's a limp.
I actually don't hate the check bag with aces.
I don't love it. I think that.
How much raising are you doing off of this effective?
I mean,
stack?
I think you should be doing some. That's the thing. Like I think if you force yourself,
it's polar ranges,
right? Like if you in Yo's spot, you can't really force yourself to play jam or check because there's so many hands that want to make it like 2.8x, and you want to have a polar range of like 2.8x that then folds to a jam or calls a jam.
Right.
And I just think the SPR when you get to the flop is slightly too high to be comfortable just checking aces. Like if she limped off like 6 bigs or something, I think you can just check aces. But like I think when you're 10 bigs effective, I think you still want to.
Right. If you have the polar raising range, aces is the top, so you need to have it.
Right.
Yeah, that's fair. I guess like from the perspective of if we're gonna have traps in our checking range, like this one seems like the key.
Yeah, I just don't think we need to though. Ultimately, like I don't think that when you're like excuse me, your checking range is not contributing a lot to your EV. Spots. Like
it's so good. Josh says Lila Tove, which is good night in Hebrew on the king turn. It's so good.
So yeah, I mean, I think that's like kind of the bigger thing is this is where that weird fancy play syndrome of Yo comes to fuck him again, right? Like you would just never find leads on this texture in a limp pot heads up, or very rarely anyway.
Yeah, I think probably not.
The majority of your hands that are strong on this texture jam pre.
I'm always surprised when I look at heads up spots at when the ranges are super wide.
But they're not here. That's the thing. Queen Jack jams pre. Sevens jams pre. Jacks queens
what I mean
jam
is
pre.
Yo has like 80% of the deck, right? Like
Yo is deck.
Maria's limping like.
Yeah. I guess like what I'm saying is on this particular texture, the majority of hands that connect that board are all in pre.
Yeah, but like Queen Deuce is a super strong hand.
Yeah.
So like what I'm saying is like when you look at heads up limped pot spots, there's a surprising amount of like weird leading and things like that because you're now at a point where it's not necessarily about nut advantage because you don't need to have the nuts to stack off, right? Like you only need to have like a decent pair to stack off. So you do start seeing some weird leads on boards like this sometimes, but I do agree that I don't think the lead is good because I think that it's one of those instances where like if you feel like if you want to check this hand pre, then it should serve as a check on this flop as well. Like it doesn't make sense to check this pre, but then suddenly feel like, oh, now I need to start juicing the pot. Like,
I also think like the range construction needs to be strongly considered here, right? Like Maria has the option to open jam, and she's going to do that with a large number of hands that are worth a fair amount. So she's actually going to be kind of polarized in her construction as well, and that's going to lead to a lot of c betting on this texture.
Yeah, this is where heads up limp pots are really weird because you have like a polarized limping range and then a very linear condensed jamming range pre.
Right.
So this polarized limping range has some traps in it. It has some stuff that does come out pretty strong on this board, but it also has a lot of stuff that's like super, super weak and is just like 10-4 off or something. That has
Which
to
is
bet.
also going to bet. Yeah, it's
Exactly.
Yeah, it's all going to want to bet one big blind.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I think Yo is just like pretty happy to either continue to trap through a check call or maybe check raise very small, something in the neighborhood of like, 2.3x a single big blind bet.
Such
something
a
like
nonsense.
that. Whatever. There's just like a lot of ways to ensure that the money always goes in. I can't fathom that it is leading on Queen Jack X and then shutting down when the turn king falls. Like, if you're going to lead flop,
I
like,
didn't know she checked this back.
Yes,
Yeah.
bro.
Absolutely absurd. I think
mean, she loses to nothing.
Wow.
His hand is nuts.
What happened here?
the other thing that
Soul read.
doesn't make sense
So
to
much.
me is like the players are pretty openly talking in the back about how Maria's image is she plays tight.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard for me to believe that Yo is unaware of that image that Maria has.
Right.
And that makes her even less the kind of player that you want to start trapping against because she's going to under bluff, or if your perception is that's how she
Or
plays.
not value bet thin enough.
Yeah, exactly.
Or not
Like,
value bet thick enough.
Right, yeah. So like the general idea there is like if there was a player against whom it becomes better to do this, it's somebody who's going to play super aggro. It's like at least the players that you think are going to
Like
play
against Soyza, he just might 3 flop.
yeah, or like just any random player that you think is either going to be close to optimal, like Jason or someone like that, where they're going to bluff at the right times, or maybe someone who's actually like super crazy aggro. Check the aces against them. Like against Maria, you're going to have to be the one who puts the chips in.
Mm-hmm.
And Yo kind of talked about this when he got back after winning. He said like, oh, I was going to bet 1/3 on river or Fedor said it, I think. Somebody said it like, if you bet...
Yo said it that he was going to because he thought she might do that.
Yeah, or like someone said, I think Fedor said, if you check, she's going to bet small, but if you bet big, she's going to call. Like it's that logic of like, how do we get the most chips out of this spot?
Right.
And that's very true against players who are on the tighter or like not so aggro side. So it doesn't make any sense to me that you take aces and you play it super trappy against a player that you already think is not going to be as aggro.
Also, like on the turn when she shows that she's willing to bet, and the SPR now is like 1-ish, sub 1-ish maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Do we not just have jams here?
Yeah, I mean, you can just rip it.
You know,
that's
it's like
fine too.
how much bet folding is actually
Like,
going to take place, and how
nothing-
upset are you going to be if she does fold a hand that contains a 10?
Nothing about Yo's line makes any sense.
Yeah.
Like it just, the check flop, like check pre, lead flop, check call turn, like there's just every spot. It's like I would have done the opposite thing.
It's a fantasy hand in fantasy land.
It is. It's a custom hand. How about that? It's a custom designed hand where both players
We do
just
like
played
custom
a very
hands.
weird line.
Yeah, like I love taking it to the streets. I love getting creative and doing things. I just don't like doing it for the minimum.
You also like getting at least 10 big blinds with aces.
That's what I mean. Like I would like to take creative lines that like win the most amount of chips, even if it's bad. Like even if you're like putting yourself out on a limb where you're putting in 5 blinds on the end and it might not be good very often. Like I'd so much rather do that than put myself in a situation where I lose or win the minimum. Yo also, it's funny too because he played so many weird hands, man. He went for 3 with queens on a king high board versus Robin.
It's the French, I'm telling you.
Oh, sorry, it wasn't a king high board. It was
River king of clubs.
It was a river king.
Jack high
Three
board,
flush.
river king.
Jack
that was
high
a good
board.
line. I liked his line there, going for 3.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty fucking thin on the
It was
end.
ambitious, but it was like not necessarily bad. Like I think there's a lot of lines that he takes where it's weird, right? I've never played with him, so like I was looking at him like, oh, okay, he seems like he knows what he's doing, and then he takes the line against.
He does this
Lukas,
all the time in cash. He just does like weird shit and plays really tight.
against Lukas, where it's like he does this line where I was like, that makes no sense at all.
Do you remember the hand he played on the WPT cash game where
I don't think I ever watched that.
Oh my gosh, he played a 4 or 5 bet pot versus.
Was it Haralabob?
No. It was against the kid that used to play on Live at the Bike with me. Him and Vivian would come together. I think his name is G or something along those lines. I can't remember. Oh no, not Lee. Anyway, it's one of the kids from Macau.
It's not Yang, the race car driver.
No, not the race car driver.
He's
He's in the Formula One this year.
Yeah.
Anyway, it ends up being like a 4-bet pot where he has aces and this kid has kings, and it comes king high, and both of them just took like such fucking strange lines that Yo just folds turn for like
oh my god, this one
for like nothing. Like the
I
pot
remember
was
this
so
one.
goddamn small. All things considered, they were like 400 or 500 big blinds deep, and the pot was like less than 100 big blinds or around 100 big blinds. It was all said and done.
Including
and
the
top set of
5-bet.
kings just like doesn't win any money. It's wild.
I don't want to play poker where my top set gets no money.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, don't take weird lines. Stay in flow.
You're telling me
Where does the Yo viral thing come from? Was he like a rapper or something?
No, he was a content creator.
YouTuber.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
He still makes
YouTube.
content, I think.
It's the Argentinian guy that's the rapper,
That's
right? Alejandro
Lococo,
Yeah.
That's
He's
got a
Papo.
sales deal.
That's Papo MC.
That's right. Yeah. I was gonna say it was like rappers were polarized between Lococo, who plays all the hands.
Legend.
Love
Yeah.
Lococo, man.
He's great. Yeah.
Love Lococo.
I played with him on the feature table in the Bahamas. That was a trip. That was an experience.
This guy's a gangster. There's
Yeah,
no
he
getting around
put me
it.
in some spots.
Does the open mouth tilt anyone else?
So fucking much, bro. So much. Like, at least they had a shot clock. When I played with him on Live at the Bike, he took every fucking second imaginable. Like, he would take 30 seconds to fold with that stupid agaped mouth.
So bad.
Literally, it would fold
They
to him.
commented on
It would
this.
fold to him. He hadn't looked at his hand yet. Right? Okay, so, he's in middle position. It folds to him. We've already wasted 10 seconds. Now the clock begins, and he doesn't look at his hand yet, puts his glasses on, looks at his hand,
Every time.
covers them with both his hands, mouth agape.
You gone for the super close up.
And then he reaches for chips like this. Like the old Doc Sands crane.
Oh my God.
Just stop.
The old Doc Sands crane, and he gets a hold of them, and then he just drops them.
Crane FC.
Oh, it makes my skin crawl, man.
I
Like,
don't understand how he can fucking do the same exact thing every single time.
I just don't get it. I don't understand what's gained from it other than like putting all of us on absolute monkey tilt.
Yeah, well, that's
I mean, that might
probably
be
part
it.
of it.
Person,
Yeah, that
person
is
was
part of it.
screaming at him. Just like screaming at him to play faster. I mean, he's gotten better from what I understand. I haven't really watched much of the games that he's on, but like he has his own private game that I think he runs.
How'd that end up happening?
Like at Dust to Dawn, maybe.
How do you convince
or-
people to play with him?
Well, I don't know, man. He leads fucking 5 ways on Ace King 5.
Some things aren't worth it, man.
What I also think is kind of fun about Yo is the way that when he speaks English, his accent is like the
Charlie.
most stereotypical French guy accent in the entire world. There's
Charlie-
like,
Charlie
Carrel.
Charlie
He
Carrel.
really just leans into the Frenchness of his accent. It's
you gotta
great.
love it.
Do have to
Yo's a
love it.
fucking character, man. There's no getting around it.
That's
All right,
true.
that's gonna do it for us. Hunt, as always, a riveting strat chat. We appreciate
Happy
you,
to
my
be
man. We'll be back tomorrow noon. I guess we're gonna be joined by Melissa. She has a little segment put together.
Is it weird news?
Well, weird news is going to be a part of it. It's
Gonna get weird.
It's going to get weird. There's for sure a guarantee with that.
Oh,
And-
yeah.
I feel like when you guys get Melissa on, it's like the polar opposite of when I'm on. Like,
Yes.
the Melissa
Yes.
shows are like the antidote to the shows that
Correct.
Like,
That's why I was
completely
on
the
after you. We
opposite.
need, we
That's
need to
right.
lighten it up a little bit after
Right,
Strat Chat.
exactly.
That's right. She's the late show. So we'll be back tomorrow, noon Pacific. Be sure to tune in for that. Don't forget that we are running a pre-Black Friday sale now until the 19th. $19.99 for your first 2 months. Use code OnlyFriends at signup, solveforwhy.io. Also, we do still have seats to the January Academy. I believe that's January 15th to the 17th, if I'm not mistaken. Seats are going fast. Head to academy.solveforwhy.io if you're interested in being part of that. You can find more information there.
There's also a discount. Don't forget about the
Oh, yeah, I
discount.
do.
Just when you thought
I
we
do.
were done, suck on
Yes.
that.
That one you don't even need a code. Just go sign up to the Academy before the 15th of December. Any of them. The one in January, the one in March, 2 in May. And you know what? You'll get $500 discount.
That's right. You heard it here first from the manager. All right, we're going to see you guys tomorrow. Thanks for joining us.
Peace.
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 Peace.